Once upon a time, the Fast and Furious movies were about racing cars. It's been years and years now since they've even pretended to be set in anything resembling the real world. The last few have essentially been Mission Impossible, but sillier again. This has worked out pretty well for them in terms of the quality of the movies, as far as I can tell. I'm not going to pretend to understand the unplumbable depths of Fast and Furious lore, but I saw Furious 7. I had a pretty good time with it, especially the bit where they dropped the cars out of the plane, then the planes have parachutes, and it's like... That's silly, and I like it. Unfortunately, there's less of that kind of thing this time. Why is this a spin-off? It turns out it's a spin-off because most of the ensemble is gone, and also because there's, by my count, only 2 car chases, and only one of them is good. The good one is bonkers, that's why it's good. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham reprise their roles as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Jason Statham. The plot is something to do with Idris Elba as a super soldier, and he's part of this eugenics death cult, which is also the Illuminati, but that doesn't really matter so much. Like, the plot is dumb, dumber than even this kind of movie can get away with. But the main thing this film is trying to be is a buddy cop movie. This is the main reason that this movie sucks. It blows chunks, because it's not even funny. It's not even entertaining. Hobbs and Shaw, the characters, don't work in a buddy cop dynamic because they're given almost exactly the same personality. Buddy cop comedies rely on a clash of personalities and worldviews. You usually have some sort of intellectual or pencil-pushing nerd, or someone like Agent K from Men in Black, versus an Agent J type, a wild-card maverick that doesn't play by the rules. Early on, it seems like they're playing The Rock as the slob and Statham as the sophisticated intellectual, but this evaporates pretty quickly. It's entirely up in smoke as soon as they actually meet. The reason they don't like each other isn't because they disagree about something, or because they're significantly different people. They just find each other a bit annoying. One doesn't like the other's face, the other doesn't like the one's voice. This is weird because, like I said, I saw Furious 7. That was all about Shaw trying to kill Hobbs and all of his friends. You'd think that would be a better reason for disliking someone than, like, not liking the cut of their jib. But like I was saying, the big reason that this doesn't work, the big reason that they're not funny, is because they act almost the same in every single situation. There are points in this movie where it seems like they're mimicking each other, point for point, blow for blow, punch for punch. And that's because they essentially are. Johnson and Statham both have contract demands that say that they have to limit the amount of punishments that both of them take in a fight. Neither of them can be recognized as the real loser of a fight. This guy, Michael Fottrell, who produced some of the previous Fast and Furious movies, he said to the Wall Street Journal that that's how they choreograph it, so that none of the heroes come out looking like they're the big loser. They had to do this for Vin Diesel as well. This, of course, is kind of alarming and embarrassing just because of how fragile Statham and The Rock's egos are, apparently, and how concerned they are with their brands at the expense of the art. But I'm more concerned with the toll it takes on the film itself. It blows all sense of stakes out of the water. There's a bit early on where there's a car chase, and the 2 characters, Hobbs and Shaw, successfully escape Idris Elba. But this would have been much better if, like, they tried to outright take down Idris Elba, like if they tried to defeat him then and there, as would have made more sense. But they don't do that because that would mean that they would have to lose a fight. But it would have been better if they lost that fight, because then there's a sense that Idris Elba is a real tough guy and they're really going to have to push themselves to win this one. There's a sense that they might not actually win, and I know it's one of these action movies, obviously they're actually going to win. But there's suspense, you know, there's a bit of bloody tension. There are ways that these movies, silly movies, can be written well and that they can be written badly, and just because they're dumb or silly or whatever doesn't mean that it's okay for them to just be straight up bad. As this is an example of that. Worse than that again, stripped of the ensemble around them, stripped of all the other charismatic actors, what you're left with is 2 characters who, we're told, are polar opposites who can never get along, but they're doing the same things all the time. Characterization comes across best not by what the characters say, but by what they do. So this hammers home the sense that Hobbs and Shaw aren't different people or opposite people. They're the same person twice. It completely scuppers most of the chances of getting a decent laugh because this kind of buddy cop comedy is character driven. This is why most of the jokes aren't funny. The Rock and Statham are playing basically the same characters. They roast each other, but the roasts are very generic and broad and kind of bland because there's nothing to work with there. The two of them are perfectly serviceable. They're screen leads, they're stars, they know what they're doing, they're earning their paychecks, they're saying the funny lines and they're saying them okay. Nothing to write home about, but they're not the problem here. The issue here is that the characters that they're playing are two slices of white bread. The dynamic is so bland, so flavorless, that I can't even get enthusiastic about all the accidental gay subtext. You always get this in buddy cop movies, and this is no exception. The Rock has a daughter in this movie, and she's cute, and we get some nice father-daughter moments, and that's good. And she says to The Rock, sometimes people annoy each other as a way of flirting with each other. Something to that effect. And when she says that, she's talking about the woman, the love interest that we have here. Vanessa Kirby. Perfectly serviceable. But it reads as much truer of the two big boys themselves, who tease each other and roast each other so much it would put Natsuki to shame. So this is why they give Jason Statham a hot sister to pawn The Rock off onto. It's a way to reassure everyone that this is completely heterosexual. Similarly, you've got a bit where Isa Gonzalez shows up and plays tonsil hockey with Jason Statham for a few seconds, and then literally just fucking leaves the movie again. Maybe I shouldn't act all surprised that a Fast and Furious movie has a bad script. Maybe it's just as silly for me to act all surprised and insulted. What is insulting is how this goofy action movie tries to do politics. Idris Elba wants to kill most of humanity to save it from going entirely extinct. And it would go extinct because of the bad things that humans do, like capitalism, global warming, terrorism. It's not clear why he thinks killing most of the people in the world will stop those things from happening, or why he thinks it would be a good way to stop those things from happening. This is the dumbest straw man I've ever seen in a movie. You might think that you're trying to make the world a better place, or that you're trying to challenge the status quo in some useful way, but actually you're trying to do a genocide. Idris Elba works for this organization in the movie, and it's sort of like a bunch of dumb ideas pushed together. Like, you've got a little bit of Red Scare communist propaganda in there, you've got a little bit of good old-fashioned Illuminati anti-Semitic propaganda in there about a secret organization that controls the media for its own ends, because they can control the entire media narrative with a few keystrokes. Which is the other thing. If they can do that, then surely it's relatively easy for them to just end capitalism. Surely there's an easier way for them to do it than, like, kill most people. Whatever. You've also got some GOP stuff in there about machines taking jobs from people, because Idris Elba is kind of a cyborg in this one. They do the Sherlock thing. You know Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes, where he's like, oh, I'm about to beat up a man, let me analyze him, voiceover, slow motion, the Holmes vision thing. Instead of that, they do like the BBC Sherlock Benedict Cumberbatch thing, where there's like text on screen because he's got like a fucking Google Glasses implant in here, and he's like, haha, I observed that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham are about to try to punch me. And it's like, yeah, what else would they do? But then, like, towards the end, and this is not a spoiler, because you know this is what's going to happen, as he starts getting beat, then presumably the machine keeps telling him, you're about to get hit, but there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm just picturing like this Holmes vision slow motion thing where it's like, I'm about to get hit in the solar plexus, slow motion, nothing I can do about it, just comment on it helplessly. Here it comes. Oh, jeez! The point is that the politics of this story are there, as they're slimy, but they're also totally incoherent, and you might not even notice them. Admittedly, all of that is digging in deeper than I really need to dig. The main thing you need to know is that this film is trying to be fun and entertaining and funny, and it's not. Thanks for watching. I've got a Patreon. Like the video, comment the video, subscribe for videos similar to this one. Share it with your friends. Thanks. Bye-bye.